Hey everyone and welcome. In this video we look at a totally hypocritical article in The Independent regarding voter ID that the Tories are bringing in. Now you got to remember the Tories did actually have this in their manifesto and they were voted for anyway, so it is something that the people want as well. It's titled Bame Groups Accuse Government of Importing of US Style Voter Suppression to Britain with Voter ID Plans. White voters more likely to have ID cards already. Now, as you can see with that title, bias is obvious. They couldn't just say suppression to Britain with voter ID. Why bolt on white voters more likely to have ID? Please tell me why whites having ID means anything to the Bame vote. Sounds very Bame against whites again, doesn't it? Lamestream. Sowing division for profit again, are we? Now don't get me wrong, I don't like the idea of ID either. It raises too many connotations of the Stasi. Papers please, etc. I don't like government having that power. But, and it is a huge but, I do think we need to put something in place, because at the minute anyone can walk in and vote without proof, which leaves us open to election fraud, doesn't it? Now I'm not saying it happens, I don't know for either way to be honest, but it is far too easy to do, and therefore it is a door that needs closing, is it not? But anyway, let's read. Anti-racist and Bame organisations have warned the government that its plans to require ID at polling stations will lock black and ethnic minority people out of democracy. How exactly will it do that? Just wondering. In an intervention timed to coincide with the Windrush Day, groups including the Runnymede Trust, what you actually mean by that is to coincide with the BLM movement. They've jumped on the bandwagon. And who are the groups? Let's have a look. Runnymede Trust? Yep, brilliant. Hate Not Hope and the Race Equality Foundation. You see what I mean about the bias? Said government policy amounted to the importing of US-style voter suppression to the UK. How exactly does voter ID mean suppression? The only people that wouldn't want a voting ID card are people with too much to hide. Prove me wrong. Ministers want to make it compulsory for voters in England, Scotland and Wales to show ID cards before they can cast their ballot, which is rightly so in my opinion. But the plans are highly controversial because different demographics are more likely to have valid ID cards than others. And what? Get an ID card. If you want to vote, get a card. Groups demographically more likely to support the government, like white people. You see, it's always got to be about dividing the races, hasn't it, from the media at the minute? I am sure they want a race war in this country. Why do I think that they want that? Clicks, money, profit, greed. That's why. And a desperation to keep hold of the power they've gained. You notice how it says demographically more likely to support the government. Can I just say something at this point? If you don't support governments, why would you want to vote anyway? See where I'm going with that? Sorry, that was a bit angry, wasn't it? But they make me annoyed. They really do. I mean, this sort of reporting is only sowing more and more and more division. How do they think that they are ever going to close the gap once they've hammered a metal wedge between us? And older people are significantly more likely to already have photo ID. So ageists, these people are ageists as well then, are they? Leading to some critics to claim that the ministers are trying to suppress turnout of their opponents' supporters. Really? How is that? I don't understand this. So if you can't be bothered getting an ID card, you should still be allowed to vote anyway. Why? Why? No one else will have to. Preferential treatment, is that what this is? You want preferential treatment. Suspicions have also been raised because in-person voter fraud is a non-existent problem under the UK's current system with just one person convicted a year. Is it non-existent then? If one person is convicted a year, is it really non-existent, or are we just not catching them because we can't prove it? Just leaving that one out there. Out of proportion to the push for the policy. Is it really? Does this not feel like racism of low expectations? Because it does to me. It's like they're saying that Bame people are incapable of getting voter ID and therefore we shouldn't have voter ID. You understand where I'm going with that? It's abhorrent. The government says people without an existing form of ID will be able to apply for an electoral ID card, but the group said this aspect of the policy represents another barrier to voting that will put many off. Oh, right, okay. This is what it's all about. Because they're a bit put off, they don't want to get a card, we should allow them to vote anyway, but no one else will get this privilege, it'll just be them, is it? Why should they be any different? Electoral ID card, I am sure they would give out free. So it's not even a case of a money barrier, is it? Do you think Labour would allow them to charge them for an ID card? Do you really think that would happen? Because I don't. With a postcode lottery in terms of how easy the cards are to acquire in each of the 300 councils of the UK. We only vote every 5 years, you moron. They've got 5 years to get one. How is that putting them off? And a postcode lottery. How is that? I don't get this article. It's just ridiculous, this. We are writing to sound the alarm at government plans that will make it harder for the people to vote. See, this is just sowing more and more division, is it not? If you want to vote, get a card. If you don't want to vote, don't get a card. Simple as that. The government is intent on pushing ahead with voter ID, which will have a disproportionate impact on BAME people. Well, do something about it instead of crying about it then, lefty organisations. Why don't you make sure that everybody's got an ID? Oh, that's too difficult for you, is it? You just want to cry and flap your lips. Or perhaps you just know that they've got something to hide and you're backing that fact. We are deeply concerned that since there is no universal ID in the UK, this Show Your Papers plan represents an importing of US-style voter suppression to the UK. The group cited data showing that white people are most likely to hold one form of a photo ID, with 76% holding a full driving licence compared to 31% of Asian people and 41% of black people. Are we to be held responsible for their lack of getting paperwork? How is this a thing? How is this our fault as well? You understand where I'm coming from with this? If they've not got photo ID, means they've not got a passport, does it not? Why have they not got a passport? Just thinking on the fly. You see what I mean? The statement was signed by Dr. Zubiada Haque, Interim Director of the Runnymede Trust, Darren Hughes, Chief Executive of the Electoral Reform Society, Pragna Patel, Director of Southall Black Sisters. That doesn't sound racist at all, does it? Jabir Butt, OBE, CEO of the Race Equality Foundation and the anti-racism group Hope Not Hate. Really? They're an anti-racism group, are they? They added, they're not actually, they're a left-wing activist group. They added, the Windrush scandal showed what can happen when millions of people who lack ID are shut out by the government. Get ID then. We must not risk a rolling Windrush scandal here with BAME and marginalised groups locked out of our democracy. Ministers must think again. Can I just say, if they are allowed to live here legitimately, they are not locked out of our democracy, are they? They have the vote. They pay tax, you get a vote. How are they trying to make out that there's anything racist here? Would we need to have ID? Yes, we would. So why shouldn't they? A pilot of voter ID laws was carried out at the 2019 local elections. The Electoral Commission, which administered the pilots, said it was not able to draw definitive conclusions from these pilots about how an ID requirement would work in practice. You give everyone that's able to vote an ID card, they go to vote and they show their ID card. That's how it works in practice, particularly a national poll with higher levels of turnout or in areas with different socio-demographic profiles not fully represented in the pilot scheme. The government is, however, pressing ahead with the plan, which was included in the Conservative manifesto. They argued that the measure would protect the integrity of our democracy, and rightly so it would. Voter ID laws have a long history as a partisan issue in the United States, really, where they tend to be introduced by Republican state administrations who rely on white voters for the overwhelming majority of their support. No, what it actually means is they've got voter fraud over there as well. Trump's highlighted it just recently. Now, to combat that, you need voter ID. The reason they see it as partisan is because the other side want everyone to vote, even people that have only just got to the country. Everybody's entitled, even if they're not from there. So you can understand why Republican states have brought in ID, which is exactly the same reason as why I think we should bring it in. Critics point to many of the same factors. That is absolutely rubbish, by the way. Republicans get voted by numerous BAME people. That is an out-and-out lie. That's just trying to sow division here like it is in America. Absolute joke, media. You're a disgrace. Critics point to many of the same factors handing a partisan advantage to the law's proponents. Why is it an advantage if everyone's got to get an ID card to vote? Why is there an advantage for anyone if everyone's got to get it? You see where I'm coming from with this? This is just one group deserves more than you. Well, I'm sorry, that's racism. Is it not? That's oppression. Is it not? I just don't get it. Are we ready for the last paragraph, everyone? Voter ID requirements are common in continental Europe. Yep, continental Europe. These same groups want to stay in Europe and completely tied to them. So wouldn't this ID be brought in because of that anyway? You understand where I'm coming from? They're screaming about it now, but if the EU brought it in, they'd be like, woo, yeah! This is anti-Tory rhetoric and anti-white rhetoric again, isn't it? All racism is disgusting in my opinion, including anti-white racism. Martin Luther would be disgusted at what the media are doing at the minute, but many of the same issues do not apply, as these countries tend to have a national ID card schemes where cards are already mandatory for all. Good for the goose, good for the gander then. A similar system is in place in Northern Ireland where electoral ID cards are issued free of charge. And guess what happened? Not one of them complained. Now, what are my opinions on this? It's a necessary evil, the ID card. But if the government give it out for free, where's the issue? Don't want a card? Don't vote. Want to vote? Get a card. It's not difficult, it's not rocket science, is it? This is now news race baiting again from the legacy media and lefty hate groups. I truly believe MSN want it all to burn for white guilt, Marxism. The UK would never vote for Marxism, socialism, communism, all the same thing, and we know it. Profit and power. If you think I'm wrong, let me know. In regards to ID cards and these companies, these organisations, you can guarantee, and they all back Labour. Guess what Labour did when they wanted to vote for a new leader? You know the leader that's currently in place now, Sir Keir Starmer? Guess what they did? You had to be an ID holder and pay £25 for the privilege. We remember? Exactly. That's why I think it's hypocritical. It's alright for Labour to enforce their members to have voter ID and pay for the privilege, but anyone else, it's racism, innit? See where I'm going with that? Now, I actually truly believe the media are pushing this on purpose at this point. It's hard not to. I think they're going to keep pushing and driving a wedge so that they can sit back and go, look how disgusting this country is. We're brilliant though, because we've got the moral high ground, obviously. You lot down at the bottom, all the poor people, you fight between each other, and us in our ivory towers will sit back and gloat. That's what's happening really now. The mainstream media are intending to get us scrapping with each other so that we can't pay attention to the things that really matter. Identity politics, intersectional politics is destroying us from the inside, in my opinion. But let me know what you think. I would like to know your opinions. Stay safe, everyone. Don't forget to hit the like, comment, subscribe, bell icon, share it out, and I'll see you on the next one.